Painful domination! A warrior's honor is more powerful than any bullet. Teach the enemy that lesson. Ready! Charge!
Bunch of idiots.
What a waste of men! Fire! Prepare to feel the Minotaur's cavalry stampede!
No, see, Devil King, I feel like you may be misinterpreting something. It's not the horses that do the fighting, it's the men on the horses. So the gimmick for this level is that our camp is being assaulted by the Minotaur's cavalry, and we need to destroy the cavalry before it reaches our stronghold. You can see our stronghold has a health bar over there in the upper right above the map.
Feel the wrath of the Minotaur!
And any of the cavalry that can actually enter our stronghold will be flashing yellow. Or, well, the icon will be yellow, it's still flashing red. What we're actually going to do is slowly make our way to Scorpio, or Yukimura in the original Sengoku Basara, and take him out. Because doing that will cease the cavalry from advancing at all. This opening section of the level can be somewhat hazardous to your health and play quite a bit differently from most of the game because these horses can and will just completely bowl you over if you're in their way. We're still going to be wiping every red dot off the map though, just as we did before.
I've got nothing to fear from those pea shooters!
So after we get rid of these few other cavalry members and this commander behind us, we're gonna head straight to Scorpio. Because he's the closest red dot now.
We're in deep now!
Prepare for battle! Bring it on! You're nothing I can't handle!
So Scorpio's most defining characteristic in Devil Kings is that he likes to jump a fuck ton. Which, you know, I guess that makes sense considering how energetic and jumpy he is, but yes, he likes to jump a lot, and we can knock him out of the air either with our own jump attack or shooting him out of the air with our priming attack. Fighting him while the horses are still around is kind of difficult because they will run you over while you're attacking him. But after we get rid of him, all the horses will go away. Honestly, we're more likely to get hurt by the surrounding horses than Scorpio himself. But thankfully the cavalry also acts as item drops, so after we destroy any of the horses with an exclamation point above their head, we either get a fury drop or a health drop that we can use to our advantage. Taking damage also refills our fury meter, which we can of course use to activate our fury... yeah, this. So during this fight with Scorpio, it actually benefits us greatly to run away from Scorpio and attack the horses to pick up the stuff they drop, and then go back to attack Scorpio afterward. Scorpio himself is not actually that difficult in spite of how much he flails around, but even if we were low on health, we could simply retreat to the old Muso standby tactic, which we'll get to if it ever becomes relevant. You know, more of the boss characters should consider having horses around them at all times because that seems to be working out really well for Scorpio here. If they could just have their cavalry members carry less item drops, then I'm sure Scorpio could come out on top here. You may have noticed the cavalry members actually slow down when we approach them, which is pretty funny.
I will serve for the greater glory of my lord. Soon realize the true might of the Minotaur. How can I see my lord after suffering such humiliation?
We're ready! Let's move!
So now that Scorpio is defeated, the cavalry stampede has stopped, our allies have arrived, and we can begin our counterattack on Red Minotaur. And now we can actually start using our special moves, one of which impales people on a bunch of sticks. Which I'm trying to demonstrate here, but I keep getting hit in the back. Impaling people on a bunch of sticks doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it sure does look fun. It also instantly renders any enemy it hits completely vulnerable, but it's not as though the enemies are invulnerable to start with, so you mostly do it just because it looks cool. And now we're going to go about the work of slowly clearing every single red dot off the map, because the gimmick of the level is over. That's all we have left to do now, and it's fun. That's usually the fun part. This does give me an opportunity to talk about what the hell was going on in the cutscene before this fight, and what the hell is going on in the fight itself. So I've already said the character we're playing as, the Devil King, is based on Nobunaga Oda, and his name is just Nobunaga Oda in the original Sengoku Basara. Nobunaga Oda was nicknamed the Demon King, among other things, and this is because he greatly opposed traditions in the Sengoku era. He favored pragmatism over honor and nobility, and that's ultimately what won him the war. But it painted him in a rather negative light amongst the people in that era, because a lot of people still cared about honor, dignity, and they really didn't like being shot in the face when they tried to fight you with swords. Among other things, one of the reasons Nobunaga Oda was considered dishonorable is because he used firearms in combat. Now to him this just made sense, you know, it only makes sense to use firearms because they are superior to swords. But at the time period, this painted him as some sort of evil, cruel mastermind. And depending on which fictional media you consume, that only gets played up more and more. There's very little evidence to suggest that Nobunaga Oda was actually cruel or evil, but a lot of fictional media likes to paint him in this way simply because of the sensibilities toward him at the time. Now, Sengoku Basara probably has the worst and least generous portrayal of Nobunaga Oda by far. I mean, just look at his outfit and how he behaves. He's evil incarnate. But Sengoku Basara really isn't trying to take itself seriously, so it's probably well aware that it's not historically accurate in the slightest, and is playing up the romantic aspect of its characters to its maximum. But the end result to that is that we get things like that anime cutscene you saw at the beginning of this level, where you get to see Nobunaga Oda's reliance on firearms in an extreme context. Granted, you also get to see Yukimura Sanada and Shingen Takeda in an extreme context as a result, but we're not getting into that right now. We're playing as Devil King.
Off I go. Looky here. Another fool come to say hello.
Vermin! Fools, behold, your new king is here.
So in spite of Talon being a boss character, you might notice that we could have completely walked around him if we wanted to. That's something you'll notice a lot in Devil Kings, is that characters tend to stand in their designated spots and not bother with you until you approach them. It's almost like this is a beat-em-up or something, and not actually a war. Anyway, Talon has a mid-air dive attack that can be a little annoying, but you can easily break him out of it, and mostly I just press triangle to prime him and then mash on the square button to lower his health really quickly. Talon certainly doesn't jump as much as Scorpio, which is saying something considering Talon's a ninja.
I can't die. Not like this. Sorry.
So you may have noticed, instead of the boss characters dying as they normally would, they're just running away this time. And that's because we will actually have to fight another stage against the Red Minotaur, Scorpio, and Talon. Depending on when and where you attack the Red Minotaur's territories, he can have multiple levels. The same can be said of a couple of other characters, though we don't really need to get into that. All you need to know is that we'll have to fight the Red Minotaur's armies twice. So as you can see, if we simply chose to ignore the other two pathways and went straight up the right pathway on this map, we could have easily taken out Red Minotaur very early, immediately after we got rid of Scorpio. Could have just headed straight for him. But that's no fun. We want to kill everyone. We want them all to die. I do have a chance while we're doing this to elaborate on some of the other game mechanics, though. You've pretty much seen everything our Thornbush attack has to offer. It looks satisfying and is fun to impale enemies, but it doesn't do a whole lot. But there is something I forgot to mention about the Lamenting Souls attack in the last video. When you take sufficient damage and are knocked out of the Lamenting Souls attack, the souls around you actually turn against you and attack you, which deals a sufficient amount of damage to your character. We have so much health that that's not really a concern, but it looks pretty damn cool. It's a really nice visual touch, and it also acts as a good setback for beefing yourself up so excessively. But you can also turn off the Lamenting Souls attack anytime you want manually without any setback whatsoever. So this pathway is just completely stuffed full of non-standard enemy types. Guys that throw rocks, guys with bombs strapped to their backs. It's just a big pile of non-standard enemies leading up to the commander. This means that we don't get to tear through them with the same satisfaction as we would normal soldiers, but evading them is fun in its own right. I would feel slightly uncomfortable in the position of this commander right here, next to all these guys with bombs strapped to their backs. I mean, his name implies he's supposed to be commanding them, but they actually move completely independently of anything he does, unlike many of the normal soldiers. So I guess he was just commanding the gate, basically. You may have noticed there are quite a few red dots around Red Minotaur, and it is possible to take out those red dots without triggering Red Minotaur's cutscene, humorously enough, because as I said, the boss characters tend to stand in one spot until you trigger their cutscenes. And then they suddenly become aware of you and decide to chase you down. I understand why this was done from a game design standpoint. They wanted to give the player the satisfaction of removing everything from the map in a clean fashion. So I can walk right into the Red Minotaur's stronghold and kill the captain standing right next to him without ever attacking Red Minotaur directly. Just to walk right around him on the edges. And it looks stupid, sure, but for the game design's purposes, it works. It's not as though we're pretending this game has strategic elements to it or anything, right? Because I don't want to give the impression that this game has anything resembling strategy in it.
Prepare to battle the dreaded Red Minotaur. Today is not your lucky day, is it? I'm too much for you to handle.
Perhaps you're a great one, but you
See if your big mouth is telling the
I always find it remarkable how these characters are capable of exchanging banter while getting the shit slapped out of them. It takes a whole lot of focus to talk while you're getting slapped around like that. So Red Minotaur, or Shingen Takeda in the original Sengoku Basara, is very strong, but he's also very slow, which means we have the advantage. But the fucker blocks a whole lot. So even though all of our attacks outrank his in the speed department, it can take a while to actually deal damage because he blocks so damn much. In my experience, he seems more difficult the second time you fight him, and that may just be for game design progression purposes.
through you like the raging wildfire.
nonsense.
Tremble at every stomp of the Minotaur's feet. Escape is just another of a warrior's options.
All is mine. Mine forever. Heaven and earth under my sword.